Hi, and welcome to the CAFMA Connect. I'm your host, Fire Chief Scott Freitag, and with me today on this episode is our producer, technical service manager, IT genius extraordinaire, Jonah.
Hey, Chief, how's it going?
Good, Jonah. How are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, it's
Good.
different being back in front of the microphone here.
You know, I was thinking about this recently because I've been on some trips, and I have department-issued equipment, obviously, a laptop, cell phone, things like that, and I was in my Naval Postgraduate School class with some FBI folks, and they were talking about cybersecurity, and we've covered the topic briefly before, but I thought, man, we have a lot of people in this organization that have iPads or laptops or cell phones with them, and while they're inside the network, that's great, they're secure, but when we leave and we go somewhere else, or somebody goes to work at Starbucks, their home, a hotel, we're outside the network, but then we bring that piece of equipment back in the network, and this just for personal home stuff. So I asked you, hey, would you be willing to share some of your expertise on cybersecurity, because it's becoming more and more important
Definitely.
at home and at work?
Definitely. We take it pretty seriously here. I think it's good. I think that the posture now, you always have to be on the defense. There can't be in today's climate. It's really a bad thing to start resting on the fact that you maybe haven't been attacked or you haven't had some horrible cyber event, and just be continually being vigilant in what you're doing. I mean, not different than operations in a lot of aspects, you know. So we definitely have some tools out there that people can use and some things they can keep in mind. And so I just wrote some stuff down, and we can just kind of work through it if you want.
Yeah, and the first one you have on the list here was security in the home, and I didn't know this, right? I bought my Wi-Fi modem thing, and I brought it home, and I'm like, oh, this is a weird password. Nobody's ever going to figure this thing out. And so I just plugged it in and went with it. And then I've since learned, and you said there have been some changes since this, but that the cyber people who try to steal your stuff have software that just goes through all the random settings that come from the factory.
Yeah, so if you back up to the mid 2000s,
okay,
and for any of you guys watching, I'm going to throw some Easter eggs out there for you. But in the mid 2000s, when Wi-Fi first really started taking off, there were some really horrible security practices from the manufacturer side.
Right.
So you go down to Walmart and you buy yourself a WRT54G, which is like probably the most sold router of all time.
Okay.
And it has the default username password is admin. And the default network it sets up has no passphrase. So it's not encrypted. It's just an open network. Anyone can connect to it. And so at that point in time, people are just going out and buying a wireless router and sticking it in their modem and plugging it in and getting on the internet like, hey, awesome.
Right.
In the meanwhile, not realizing that any, ward driver script kiddie that's driving around your neighborhood looking for some free Wi-Fi can get access to your network and then start probing around and seeing what they can find.
Right.
So manufacturers have developed some better practices in recent history. So they will automatically by default put a passphrase and secure the wireless network, the default wireless network. And they've gone so far as to put in unique default passwords on every single device that gets shipped off the line. So that is some manufacturers. It's true, not true with other manufacturers, but it is. So a lot of times you'll see the password to your router to log into your router on the bottom of your router, right? So just make sure that whatever you're doing, that you are following the instructions that come in the manual. If you're not experienced with networking or securing networks, which 99% of people are not, most of the time whether it's like a Netgear or a Cisco or a Linksys or some of these off-the-shelf wireless routers you're going to find at Walmart or Best Buy, they'll have pretty decent guides to walk through that will help you get it set up for the first time. But the reality is that it doesn't stop there, because a lot of times, so if you start looking at the world of cybersecurity as a whole, a botnet is basically a collection of devices that are used to create attacks and attack different companies. And wireless routers are pretty commonly a big part of that.
Right.
What that means is there's some vulnerability that you didn't know about and the manufacturer didn't know about until people started exploiting it. So the most important thing with your router, besides securing it, is updating it.
So what you're telling me is when I opened the box, there was a manual.
Yeah.
And I followed the directions on how to plug it in. And there was more?
There's generally will be more directions that will guide you through how to log into the router for the first time, how to change the password, how to set up your wireless network. So if you're confused by that, right, just YouTube is very helpful, right? Because it's not just instructions on a page, it's someone doing it. And you can use YouTube as a resource to make sure that you set up your wireless, your router properly and that you've secured it. But periodically, it's important to log into the router through a web browser and ask it to check for updates, because it's very possible that your router not only could have some type of vulnerability, but that it could even possibly be compromised. So you need to make sure that you're applying those updates on a regular basis.
They have updates?
They do. Yes, updates are very important.
I'm gonna have to look at that.
So the router, so your wireless router doesn't only act as something that connects you to the internet.
Right.
It also has a firewall.
Okay.
Right? So a firewall is basically something that keeps anything from the outside that's not supposed to get in to come into the network, while generally with the home router just letting anything that wants to go out. So having that firewall is important. The same reason that you have a front door, right? Is because you want to discriminate on who has access inside your house. You need to discriminate who has access inside from outside your network into your network. So the firewall does that.
Well, touching on that real quick, because I think it's important to set the stage for people. It took me a while to realize that, hey, fire departments are a target for some of these cybersecurity criminals out there. But I'm like, okay, well, I get the fire department now. I know they're trying to extort money from us, but why just me as a person? Why is it important to an individual that their network is secure? Because what are they going to do? They're not looking at me. I mean, that's what people think.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily true. They don't care. Right. So it's there's not some necessarily a basement where some hacking organization is going after necessarily Scott Freitag. Now, we have seen them go after you personally because of your position within the company, within the agency, but they're just looking for anything they can find. Right. So they have scripts that are just scanning every IP address they can on the internet, looking for any type of vulnerability that they can find and they can exploit, whether that's to use your router in a botnet, whether that's to find an open port on your router that's maybe going to some type of network device that you have inside of your network that you've enabled so that you can get access to it from other places, not realizing that anybody then can access it. Looking for ways to maybe encrypt your data so they can extort money from you. Right. So securing that network is important because people aren't after you. They're just after it.
Right.
Anything they can get their hands on.
Well, and
it's kind of a smash and grab thing.
Everything we do today. I mean, and years ago, we had 4-drawer file cabinets. That's where we put all our stuff. Today, we have laptops, mobile devices, whether it's an iPad or some other lesser brand of mobile device. And we keep everything on there. Bank records, all of our family photos, everything are on these computers. And I don't know, if you, after a house fire, for example, somebody's computer burns up and, boy, all my bank records, my will, every important record that I need was on that computer that I can no longer access.
Right. No, it's true. So that starts at the network level. I just I was talking to a friend the other day, and he was having problems with his wireless router, so he called me and he's sending me some pictures on the phone, and he sends me a picture from his computer, and I'm like, dude, you've got a external IP address on it. He had his computer plugged directly into his cable modem because his cable modem had an extra port. Right. There's no firewall on the other side of your cable modem, right? So if you're connecting your computer directly to your modem and your modem isn't also acting as a router/firewall, you're exposing yourself to just about anything that they can get to on your computer. Okay. If you've, for whatever reason, you've opened up any service so that you can access files from another computer on your network, anyone can get to it. So it's important to keep your stuff, start at the network, secure your stuff behind a router, and make sure that you change the passwords and you update it on a regular basis.
And do not put them in metal cabinets.
Yeah.
Apparently that's like little Wi-Fi jail, and
So
that's why your
Faraday
Wi-Fi
cage,
doesn't
right?
work.
So the other big thing at home is Internet of Things, which has become
Right.
a real thing. I think it's hilarious. We have a IoT network here at CAFMA, and I get people all the time saying, I'm connected to the CAFMA lot network. I'm like, that doesn't say lot. It says IoT.
Okay.
It makes me laugh every time. But Internet of Things it's become all the rage in the last 3 or 4 years. Smart speakers, smart televisions,
Right.
video cameras, HVAC systems, like all these things are connected to the internet so that you can do really convenient things. Like before you go home, you can turn the heat up on your HVAC system, or
Right.
you can get on and watch your cat and dog play on the couch while you're supposed to be working.
Right.
So Internet of Things, I just have to go back to one of the most wise things that's ever been put out in pop culture, and that is Jurassic Park.
Okay.
And Ian Malcolm, when they're talking about all these amazing things they've done with creating these dinosaurs, he says, you're so busy thinking whether you could, you didn't stop to think if you should.
Right.
And that is, for me, is always the question. Yes, can I connect my toilet to my wireless network? Should I? I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
Because what's happened is there's actually been malware that has hit these things. HVAC systems, where it just turns the heat on and turns it all the way up, and they contact you and say, unless you pay us 0.35 Bitcoins, we're not turning off your heater, right?
Oh, wow.
There's some really well-known cases with Nest cameras a couple of years ago where they had a vulnerability where anyone could just log in without authenticating, see you, hear you, talk to you. I mean, creepy stuff.
Right.
Same again, cameras, speakers, televisions, even vehicles now are constantly connected to the internet, like a Tesla, which if you
Right.
stop making your payments, they turn your car off, right? So this
Not
is
not a bad security feature.
right. So Internet of Things is all the rage. It's just important that you, again, make sure that you're updating your devices. Right. The big problem is that there are vulnerabilities that are found in like the network stack
Right.
of these devices. And there was one that came out a couple months ago. It's like 2 billion devices, and they have this vulnerability, and you can't fix it.
It's amazing. We've made our lives easier and more portable, but we've opened our lives up to anyone and everyone, and they may not mean to do us anything good.
Yeah.
Right? They mean to do us harm by stealing our information.
Yeah, or spying on you, or
Yeah.
I think no one really took seriously the tape over the camera
Right.
on your laptop until they saw Mark Facebook with his, Zuckerberg had tape over
Right.
his, and the internet exploded. It was like, Zuckerberg's covering his camera. Maybe you should too. The next thing I have is just
I don't trust that guy.
what I call layer 8 problems.
Okay.
And so in IT, there's an OSI model, and it's just basically all the levels of technology ending in the application, and there's 7 layers.
Okay.
So if the 7th layer is the application, the 8th layer is the person, right? So these are layer 8 problems. So these are problems that are us. These is not necessarily technology. These
Right.
problems are us.
So is it like an org chart?
It's very similar. Yeah.
Okay,
Up
perfect.
arrows and down arrows.
Got it.
So phishing emails,
Yes.
right? Someone sends you an email. Back in the day, it was the Prince of Kenya was trying to send you $10 million if you would just wire transfer him $500, and
Right.
when he got out of the country, he'd give you his fortune, right?
If I just give him that key information in my bank account.
Right. So that was kind of the beginning of the exploitation about 15 years ago, and now it's nonstop. It's incessant, right? So you'll get
Right.
emails that are pretending to be someone else. It could be someone you think that you know. It could just simply be someone trying to get as many accounts as they can so they can
Right.
use them for spam. So think before you click. Like, this is weird. Why is my second cousin asking me for money to bail him out of jail?
Right.
Right? Maybe I should just call him and ask him. So just think before you click. You'll get emails constantly, spam emails. Web use.
Right.
Careful what you try to download. Maybe don't download how to download the new Matrix movie for free and then click on the first link. Not a good idea.
So you're looking to scam the system and you end up
getting scammed. Yes.
Right. Well, I see the same thing with Facebook sometimes. I'm on social media mainly for work, but I just signed up for an Instagram account.
Okay.
I don't know how it works really, but it was a personal one, not a work one. And Kathy in our front office said, "Oh, look, you already have 39 followers in less than 24 hours." I'm like, I don't know who these women are that are scantily clad on here.
I know.
But they're not
one of the reasons I got off social media.
And I don't know who they are, and I'm not clicking on them.
10 years sober.
10 years.
So just be careful what you're searching for, what you're downloading.
Right.
Know that if you're searching for stuff that's nefarious or illicit or explicit, you're going to download some content on your computer that is going to wreak havoc.
Right.
So the bad guys are not dumb. They understand human nature, right? So they're going to plant their stuff in places where they can find idiots to download their stuff. Sorry, maybe I shouldn't say.
And
idiots.
if just as a hint, as a non-cybersecurity person, for you guys and women out there, because I'm sure they get the same thing, if someone that has a scantily clad picture sends you a message and says, "Hey, I want to be friends," it's not real.
Just say no.
I'm just saying that's not real.
Yeah. So malware protection. So you got a laptop, you got a desktop, you've got a Mac. You still need malware protection, right? So Windows 10 has gotten a lot better about at defending against most malware that comes out.
Okay.
It is it comes built in, but it's still good to ensure that you have something on your computer.
Sure.
When it comes to malware protection, there's a great website. It's AV Comparatives, av-comparatives.org.
Okay.
They have a consumer section, and it shows like the last 2 years. It'll have who has done the best at finding zero-day malware, fighting against vulnerabilities, right? So it gives you a list of vendors that are reputable, that have submitted all of their findings to be public record so they can see them. And then you have to decide which one if you're gonna buy one. If you're gonna buy one, just remember there are free solutions out there. Just remember that if the product is free, then you're the product, right? That's the generally, right? So
you get what you pay for,
right? So they're gonna want some personal information or just to get some data from you so they can sell it to somebody else so they can make some money. They're not just
then there's going to be a breach of the system and all your information's out there, and they're like, oh crap, we're sorry.
But I think the most important layer 8 problem to be aware of is scams. And there was one that just came out, actually. Teresa in our front office flagged it and sent it to me. I'd already read about it, but it was the latest one is people pretending to be from the Geek Squad and saying, "Hey, your Geek Squad membership is expiring. You need to spend $500 or these things are going to happen." Right. A lot of times you'll get a website that says your computer is infected. Call this number. You call that number and your computer's not infected until you call them. And then they infect your computer. If they call you on the phone and say, "This is Microsoft, there's a virus in your computer," just hang up. They don't know anything. They're just trying to scam you.
It's not Microsoft.
It's
Bill
not.
Gates does not have your number, despite some popular belief.
Yeah, he does not. But I mean, these happen all the time, and people, well-meaning people that are they're scared because that's what they're trying to do is elicit fear.
Right.
They call the number thinking that they're going to solve the problem, and they end up thousands of dollars gone from their bank account. Right. What they'll do is they will connect into your computer and pretend to fill a transaction through your bank.
Right.
And then they adjust the code in the browser and makes it look like you just they gave you, "Oh, I'm sorry, we only meant to refund you $100. We refunded you $1,100. We need to get that $1,000 back." Right. So then they'll get you to do a wire transfer with $1,000. Now you're just out $1,000. So
if these people could harness their energy for good, think what we could accomplish.
Well, you can YouTube it. There are guys out there that are scamming the scammers, and it is fun to watch. So if you're ever up late in the middle of the night and you have type up into YouTube, scammers scamming scammers. It's great fun. Scamming the scammers. The last thing we talked a little bit about, just make sure you're applying updates to your computers. I know it's a pain in the butt to reboot your computer when it's time to update. And Windows does updates a little more periodically than Mac, than Apple does. So you'll get every month Microsoft releases on the second Tuesday of the month patches for your computer. Apple's are a little bit less regimented, but they're nonetheless important.
Right.
So just make sure that you're running those updates when they
I know the Microsoft ones are generally at the most inconvenient times. I'm running late for a meeting. I need to shut my computer off, and it says
updating.
It's updating.
Waiting. My favorite part is when I get stuck at waiting to update 100%, and it's at 100% for like 20 minutes, and you're like, I thought you just said 100. I thought 100% meant 100%.
Wait, I'm busy. Why don't you ask me before you start updating?
And it's the same thing on your mobile devices.
Right.
Just make sure that you are that you're updating your phones.
Right.
And then just being aware that you also get scams on your phone. So text messages from random people. Hey.
Oh yeah.
How's it going?
Yeah, I get those.
Yeah. So in the home, that's pretty much it.
But these are very important things.
Yeah.
Your home network, everything in your life is on your computer or mobile device now. It's kind of important to protect that information, so that you have it, and also have backups somewhere for your everything that's on.
Absolutely. I had that a little bit further down, but we can talk about that now. Backups are really important because it's not a matter of if your hardware is going to fail, it's a matter of when. And it never fails at a moment that it is convenient. And it's also possible that you are going to get some malware. Maybe there is some 0-day that you didn't know about, you didn't do anything wrong, but you got hit and now your computer is encrypted. What are you going to do? How are you going to get your data back? So it's important to take regular backups.
Right.
And it's also important to test your backups. Mm-hmm. Go through the process of just, hey, let me just try recovering an image or recovering a file or recovering a folder from my backups to make sure that they're actually working. Because you can be like, oh, I thought I was running backups. And then you go to find out it hasn't worked in a year. Oh, crap.
Right.
So,
well, and I'll just give you a quick example. And this was years back when I was still a captain on an engine, so computers were still relatively new. Had a fire at a small business. It was an auto repair shop. A lot of stuff done on paper, but a lot of stuff moved to the computer. Well, obviously, the computer was damaged by smoke and water. And we happened to have a guy in our department at the time that was into computers. We pulled the computer out of the building. He said, don't turn this on. Here's what we need to do. And because we had somebody there that understood computers enough at the time, we were able to save that hard drive. Mm-hmm. And they came to the city council and said, we would not have been able to reopen our business had your folks not done what they did with our computer. So it's vital. Small businesses that suffer an impact from a fire or natural disaster of some type, if they haven't backed that system up somewhere, somehow, and they don't have a good IT person that works with them, they may never get back open again.
Yeah. If you think about how would I start my current business over again from scratch with nothing and maintain all of my customers, and in some cases not get hit with some insane regulatory fine because I'm a doctor's office or right. You got to back up. And in those cases, it's really important to follow best practice and have one of those backups be just, off-site somewhere else.
Yep.
So security in the workplace, most important thing, something that we do at CAFMA, and something that people, I'm sure you all love, is training, right? Training, right?
Just thinking that they don't love it.
Doing some, sending out, first starting with the training platform that gives us the information we need, and then trying to keep that training going.
Yeah.
So sending out test emails, trying to trick people, and sometimes they get mad and sometimes they fail. And basically what happens at CAFMA, if you fail, you get a call from me. And I say, hey, here's what happened. Here's what you could look for. And I know you'll do better next time. It's just, this one was a little tricky. That's okay. So here's what you look out for next time. So,
I've done pretty well picking those up.
You have.
Look at this. I'm like, I don't think...
I'm hoping to get one of the guys on my team one of these days. We'll see.
See, now everything Dave Tharp sends to me, I just mark that
fish alert.
Yeah,
fish alert. Dave Tharp. Fish alert.
Dave Tharp.
Fish alert. Computer use is the same thing at work. Right. You really, in fact, at work, you probably should be a little more vigilant and not accessing stuff that maybe you would tend to from home. But another big part of that, and right now there's two big attack vectors that are happening right now, and that is USB drives are making a big comeback, right? So someone drops a USB drive in the parking lot, and that USB drive is infected with malware. So you pick it up and I wonder what this is. And you go home and get curious, you stick it in your computer. Well, you just infected yourself with malware. Good job. In fact, we may or may not be planning some testing with some rogue USB devices. So I'm just throwing that out there. So
I would not pick up a USB drive off the ground and say, oh, I wonder whose this is. I'd pick it up and go inside and say, anybody lose a USB drive? If no, it's out.
In the trash.
Going in the trash.
That's a good way to do it. Another big one right now is PowerPoint. There's a lot of infected PowerPoint files that are going out there. So one of the things that Microsoft has built into their Office platform are what are called macros, which is just basically scripting that you can do to make your life a lot easier.
Okay.
But it can also make a hacker's life a lot easier, right? So there's some PowerPoint files out there in the wild right now that are have some embedded code that when you open it, it plants some software on your computer that then attackers can connect to you remotely.
How would you access or accidentally access a PowerPoint file like that?
You would not accidentally access it. It would be something that was sent to you via email and that you opened even though you didn't recognize who it was from.
Okay.
Or you didn't verify that it was actually solicited. Usually you're not going to get random files from people on the internet that you don't know.
Right.
So you just always check who the email came from. Even if the name is someone you know, check the email address, make sure it matches the person, because a lot of times people just change the name on their email account and send an email.
Right.
They've done that with your name quite a bit.
They do it quite often.
We do what we can to prevent some of those things from getting into our network, but it's possible that some things will get through. So you have to be vigilant. And so PowerPoint files and USB drives are making a big comeback right now. And the other side of that is just us communicating with the public or with the people inside of our agency. Hey, look out for this.
Right.
So.
Talked to one of our firefighters. He is very afraid to open anything. He takes like every email and says, Jonah.
Can you give me the first letter of his last name?
C.
Oh, okay.
Different person than you're thinking of?
It is, but there's a few of them. I get lots of calls.
Well, that's good.
No, it is good. I'm always happy to answer the phone. So physical security, if you're walking away from your computer and you're not locking it, that's a problem, right? Because any person could walk by, sit down at your computer and start impersonating you, opening your files, and it could happen very quickly and cause major problems. So if you're going to walk away from your workstation for more than 60 seconds, I would say if you on your computer there's a Windows button right next to the space bar, and the L, just Windows L, computer's locked, walk away. Otherwise, you can hit Control Delete and click lock. Mobile devices, I know it's way easier to not have a password on your phone, but you should have something securing your phone, whether that is a passphrase, if you're an Android user, some type of pattern, or you can use bioidentification, so your fingerprint or your face ID with your Apple devices, something that will at least prevent someone from just picking up your phone and start going through it. Now, there are ways to get into phones if they get physical access. So one of the things that we do, and y'all probably don't know this, it's because you don't read the terms. Nobody reads the terms on anything. But if you connect your phone to CAFMA's email, in most conditions, you're given a warning that says, hey, you're giving access to your device to your corporation. They have certain abilities when you do that. So if you were to lose your device was stolen, if you notify us in time, before it gets turned off or they start disconnecting it, we can actually remotely wipe it. So we could say, hey, this device, blow it up. Well, not explode it, but it'll wipe we can either just wipe the email or we can wipe the entire phone.
No, but exploding it would be pretty cool.
That would be awesome.
It's kind of like the money when you steal money from a bank.
Right.
It blows up on you.
Right.
That would be a blast. I like it.
So there's also, the reality of access control is other part of physical security that we do, right? So it's not just, hey, I had to put my code in to get in this door. That's also recorded so we know who went in, where, and maybe they shouldn't be going in that door at that time of day or night or whatever, so we can go back and find those things. So it helps us track some of those things. So physical security, we just try to maintain everything.
Well, and I think that's important. I mean, if you look at the back of our admin building at night, we now have those motion sensor cameras, and that's just good for security. It makes people feel a little more comfortable.
Yep. It's also fun when people actually knock stuff over and you can go back and watch them. So
there's that.
That's happened a couple times. Yeah. We have a little more sophistication at the edge of our network than you have in your house. Just more tools at our disposal to make sure that bad guys don't get in and that you can't get to things you're not supposed to, don't need to get to from work.
Right.
And then we can also keep track of all of that information. So if there was some event, someone got in, that we could go back and view the data and see, well, here's how they got in and when, and here's the attack that they used to do that.
Right.
So, yeah.
So it's about fixing it, but it's also about going back and understanding where do we make a mistake so we can learn from it.
Exactly. And if things get really bad, and you got to call your friends at the feds or the state level, they're going to want to see the data if they can.
Right.
So, and it's going to help them. It's going to go a long way to help you put things back together. So
right.
We just want to keep as much of that together as we can.
It's also expensive.
Yes. Wireless, we have a couple different ways that we guard our wireless networks, and I think everyone here is pretty used to it, but we're just continuing to build that out. In fact, we're getting ready for a new wireless, a refresh of all of our wireless hardware. So we're a few months into that process, and are getting ready to order the next fleet of stuff that we're going to need. So
eBay?
No, I do everything on Craigslist.
Oh, perfect.
Right?
Perfect. You could use Marketplace if you were still on social media.
Yeah. I don't buy stuff like that off Craigslist. Also, can I just sidebar here? The police department stole my idea. Okay. So I'm just saying, for the last 5 years, whenever I sell anything on Craigslist and the people are like, hey, where do you live? I say, hey, why don't you meet me by the police department? And I have done all of my exchanges for Craigslist right outside in the parking lot of the police department. They recently reserved a couple of spaces just for that.
Really?
Yes. So if you are selling something on Craigslist and you're maybe a little nervous about someone coming to your house or meeting them in some abandoned alley in the backside of town, no, just meet them. Either they're not going to show up because they're nefarious, or they're going to show up and they don't care that the police can see them.
So what I'm hearing from you, Jonah, is that law enforcement really looks to the fire service, not just on the operations side and how cool we are in comparison, but they're looking at our IT folks and learning from you as well, because, well, they have to have somebody to look up to.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. We also update our stuff here regularly, and I know that it annoys some of you because you come to work and your computer's rebooted. Well, word of the wise, save your work before you go home for the day, because we may need to reboot your computer. So that's security in the workplace. Again, the most important part of that is that you can play a part in is definitely training and just making sure that you're doing your best.
Well, it's important. I know I talked to the Kingman chief when they were hijacked up there, and it was a nightmare for them for months and trying to access any files at all. The next one, security on the road. And I know with my position and some of the things that I do, I'm on the road a lot. Recently, I was in a parking lot at Happy Valley doing a Zoom interview. Earlier in the day, I'd been on my computer with a hotspot in a parking lot in Scottsdale, and using my personal hotspot on my work phone. But every time you do that, things pop up that say, oh, here's a public Wi-Fi, or travel for something in the hotel. Man. Here's your password.
Gosh,
I would hit cancel. And
I would only ever use public Wi-Fi if it was my absolutely last resort and I'm dying in the gutter. Like at that point, I might use public Wi-Fi.
Pretty strong statement.
So here's the thing. When you start connecting to a network that you have no control over or no inherent trust in, like you would have with CAFMA, you don't know what is or who is on the other side.
Right.
In cybersecurity language, there's an attack called an evil twin, right? An evil twin is not Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. Like we're talking about someone sets up a wireless router and names the network the same as the other network that someone else is broadcasting, and then they do what they can to kick you off of their network and put you onto their network.
Okay.
So you end up passing all of your information through someone else's wireless network, and they can do what they can to scan and skim information off of that, potentially making things very bad for you, redirecting you to websites that they own, and you're not really noticing, and then
Right.
putting in your login information, and then boom, they have your username, they have your password, and it's off to the races.
Got everything.
So smartphones are so ubiquitous now that when you're going to a hotel, when you're going to a conference, I know that some of these places spend a ton of money on Wi-Fi, like big stadiums,
Right.
and they'll invest huge amounts of money in Wi-Fi. And I wouldn't go there. If I have a cell phone, I'm going to use that. It's going to be either use it as a hotspot, use the internet on my phone for the access that I need to do. And I'm not saying that they're doing anything wrong by offering that service to the public. Right. Obviously, some people need it. I have a lack of trust when I'm connecting to a network that I don't know who's actually running it. So if you can, use your phone, put your phone in hotspot mode, connect to that.
Anytime I go on a trip and I get to my hotel room or whatever, I have like this little Jonah on my shoulder that says, "Don't you dare connect to that Wi-Fi here."
Okay, so who's the one telling you to do it? Like, who's the person on the other side? Is it a Jonah with a tail?
No,
or
it's me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's me.
Come on, Scott.
Hey, look at this. Just sign up for that one. And then I hear you and I'm like, oh, that's right. Don't do that. Thank you for the password. Don't need it. I'm going to use my phone for this.
I would love to see a hotel that they just had directions on how to turn the hotspot on to your phone instead of having free Wi-Fi. Just how to turn on your phone's hotspot and connect to it.
Well, when you look at Wi-Fi or phone plans today, there's so many that are unlimited data, and I mean, depending on what you do for a living, even when I'm traveling, it doesn't run the data up on my Wi-Fi hotspot, whether it's my personal phone or my work phone.
Yep. If you have to connect to work, you're going to have to use some type of VPN. That just puts an encrypted tunnel between you and us so that you can connect to us securely. Right. We're working on rolling out multi-factor authentication, which just means that you have to have something else besides your password to log in. Just creating an environment where it makes it more difficult to impersonate you to get inside the network. So Bluetooth is another thing that maybe when you're in a airport, turn the Bluetooth off on your phone, turn the Bluetooth off on your devices, because you may have your Bluetooth set up in an insecure way where it is accepting pairing from any devices, and you just have to be careful there. There's also been a lot of Bluetooth, depending on how old your hardware is, there's been attacks on certain Bluetooth stacks over the years. So just turn it off. That's what I'd recommend. And then this is even worse than public Wi-Fi is. Don't ever log into a hotel computer with any type of account that is personal to you. If for some reason you're like, oh, I left my phone at the store and I have to find what's the phone number for that store so I can call them. Okay, you can go and Google the name of the store. That's fine. Do not log into your Google account. Do not log into your email. I can't tell how many times, just for fun, I'll go into the little lobby there in the hotel and look, and so there's someone logged into their email. I have access to their email right now, and I'll go log them out because I'm not a jerk, right? Yeah,
you're not a mean scammer,
right? But that's not to say someone else could walk in there, and so hotel computers, last resort and only for things that you're not doing personally.
Well, and it used to be years ago when you have to sign in for your next flight, right? Your return flight, but you're at the hotel. And so you logged into their computer to get to your email so that you could print out your boarding pass. Today, it can go directly to your phone. Yeah. So there's no need to go down and log in to an account on a computer. Yeah. You can do everything from your phone, and it's all right there. Right.
And it's not just, hey, here's, because you could say, well, I could open a browser in private mode or incognito mode, and then they wouldn't have my information.
Right.
That's true. Except you don't know if someone's installed a keylogger on that computer, right? Which just logs all your keystrokes. A number of years ago, probably about 10 years ago, a couple of kids from Prescott High School got, suspended or expelled for installing keyloggers on their teachers' computers. It's just a little USB thing they put in line, stick in the computer, and they went and changed their grades because they got their teacher's password, right? So,
oh wow,
just careful, be careful. Right. Something else to just think about physical security with your devices when you're on the road is you can install stuff like LoJack. LoJack is a software that embeds itself in So if someone does steal your laptop, someone does steal your phone, you can still get remote access to it. You can give that information to them. They'll work with local authorities to try to get it back, or possibly disable or wipe it remotely. So just secure those, and physical security. Make sure that your phone's you're not leaving your phone sitting out. It's not in a place where someone could easily walk up and grab it, because people will do that.
And my wife is horrible at that. I'll just point it out. I don't know if she'll listen to this podcast or not, but she is forever losing her phone. Where did I put it? I don't know. I'm not with you. I don't carry your phone. I don't know. It's probably wherever you lost your glasses.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. We could go on this for hours. I mean, the reality is that every day there's some new vulnerability that's coming out. It could be your phone. I know that, you're a big Apple fan. They've probably had the worst year ever as far as their mobile devices go, with 0-day vulnerabilities, and just you can get out there and Google it. It's some crazy stuff, but for the most part, just be diligent like you would in anything else. I mean, you lock your door before you go home at night. Before you go to bed at night, go lock your doors, make sure your house is secure. It's the same thing with your devices. So
there are some people that live out here that don't lock their doors and leave their keys in their car. I'm not one of those people, but I think just in looking at this today, from my perspective, looking at my personal home Wi-Fi, there are some things that I need to do better with just my Wi-Fi router modem thingy, right? I've moved it out of its little cage, but updates, I didn't even know. And I get lost sometimes with the technological type of stuff, because I'm thinking garage door opener. I want to change the code. I go open this little thing. I flip some switches. I flip these switches. Good to go. It's not how a router thingy works.
It is possible that your router will have auto update feature. If that's available, just turn it on.
Right.
Then you can set it and forget it, and it might reboot once or twice a year. But generally, most home routers, you're going to have to log in and update it. So
I should figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
I'll take a look at it. Well, Jonah, this is a lot of great information. It's important, if you're issued a device from our agency, you're responsible for that device, and we expect that you're taking or doing your due diligence to secure those devices when you're out somewhere, where you're traveling, when you're at home, whatever it is, that you are using care and following the policies that we have internally. But at home and small businesses especially, it can't be overstressed, the importance of cybersecurity and making sure that those documents that you need or your family photos are secure, and having that backup. So, Jonah, thank you so much for putting this together and sharing this information with us. Between now and next week, try not to get hacked, scammed. Don't send money to Prince whatever in some foreign country that's not you, and don't click on the scantily clad people, because they are not trying to befriend you.
They are not.
Not at all. Jonah, thank you again.
Thanks, Chief.
We'll see you next week.